Hi, in this video, you'll be learning about data visualizations. Data visualizations are graphical representations of information and data. Using visualizations, like charts and graphs, can make information more accessible and easier to understand. Let's take a look at a few different charts that are used to visualize data. Here we have a column chart. Column charts represent data as vertical columns, where the height of each column corresponds to the data value it represents. Column charts are widely used for comparing data across different categories or groups. Here, we're using a column chart to show the amount of sales in different regions. The line chart connects data points with straight lines, allowing for a smooth representation of the data's progression. This chart type is used in various situations, including tracking stock prices, monitoring sales performance, analyzing temperature variations, and many other scenarios where understanding trends and changes over time is crucial. A histogram chart looks similar to a column chart, but it is a visual representation of the distribution of numerical data, not categories. It divides the data into intervals or bins along the x-axis and displays the frequency or count of data points falling within each bin on the y-axis. So in this case, we have bins of different age groups on the x-axis, and then we have the population for each of those age groups along the y-axis. Pie charts are circular visualizations commonly used to represent categorical data. Each category is represented by a slice of the pie, and the size of each slice corresponds to the proportion or percentage it represents in relation to the whole. Here we have a list of companies and their share of the market. Let's now take a look at how we can create a chart. To do that, we'll be using this small data set about the weather. The first thing we want to do is select all of the data that we want to use for the chart. Next, we need to go up to the toolbar and select Insert, and then we'll get a menu and we could go down and select Chart. When we select Chart, Google Sheets is actually smart enough to suggest a chart for us depending on the data that we selected. Can you guess what type of chart Google Sheets is going to suggest? If you guessed line chart, then you were correct. Once our chart got created, we also got access to the chart editor. The chart editor is how we can customize the chart to have different labels, different titles, different colors. We can customize the whole chart however we want it to look. Let's look at this chart more closely in the actual spreadsheet. Okay, so here we are in the spreadsheet with the data we saw earlier. Let's now go through the process of adding a chart. So we want to go ahead and select all of the data that we want to include in the chart, and then we could go up to Insert and then click on Chart. Great, so Google Sheets decided to give us another line chart. We'll just make that a little bit smaller and put it right underneath our table. So one thing we can do is actually change the chart to be something else. And we do that in the chart editor by going to Chart Type and then clicking on this drop-down menu. You'll see that the ones listed at the top are the ones that are suggested by Google. We can click on any of these and the chart will automatically update. Let's change it back to a line chart for now. Okay, the next thing we can look at is the data range. We see that it says from A1 to D8, and that makes sense because we selected the cells from A1 all the way down to D8. If we continue down the chart editor, we can see that the x-axis is set for the date, and we can verify that in the chart. We have all of the dates down here on the x-axis. We can ignore aggregate for now, and then the series are the columns that we had selected. So we can see that temperature, humidity, and wind speed are being used as the series for the chart. Okay, so what we want to do now is actually customize the chart. So we need to switch over to the Customize tab, and then the first thing that shows up is the chart title. So Google already gave us one, but we can also just change this, and we could call it Weather Data. Oops, put date. There we go. And now our chart automatically updates with the new title. If we wanted to add a subtitle, for instance, we would just click on this menu and then we could click on Chart Subtitle. We could also add a horizontal axis title and a vertical axis title. We'll leave those empty for now. We can also change the font. So if we click here and we click wide, we can see that our title is now of the wide font. Let's actually switch it to Arial, and then we could also bold our font and then change the color of the font so we can make it black. Okay, so another way we can access elements of the chart is by actually just going to the chart and clicking on them. So for instance, if we click on the humidity line, it takes us to the humidity line's customization tab. Now we can customize this line. For instance, we could change the line color to be purple. So that looks good. But now, let's say we look over at the chart and we want to know what the humidity was on this date here, August 10th, 2023. So if we go up here, we see that there is a point there, but we can't really tell what the value is. We could look up at the data table to verify, but we can actually have it directly on the chart. To make it pop up, we go back to our chart editor and we go down to data labels. If we click on this, now we can see all of the actual values that are creating the line. This makes the chart easier to read and more accessible for everyone. So let's do that for all of the lines. We'll go back and click on the temperature line, scroll down, check data labels, and then we'll do it one more time for wind speed. Now, the colors of the wind speed data labels are actually pretty hard to see because they're so bright. So we can actually go up, we'll select wind speed, and then we'll change the color to something a little bit darker, maybe like a dark red. Great, so that is how you can insert a chart based on some data and then modify it a little bit to make it more accessible. Now it's your turn to go and experiment and learn more about data charts.